Hello, what is up, everybody? Welcome to this Wednesday edition of the Pack-A-Day podcast here on YouTube. As always, I'm your host, Andy Herman. Thank you so incredibly much for joining me. I have some defensive grades to go over today. My top 3 rated players, my lowest 3 graded players from the game against the Houston Texans. I'll kind of give my overall thoughts on the defense. But before I get into that, how can I start with anything other than thank you? I've been asking you guys to get me to or help me get to 1,000 followers prior to 50 episodes. And you did that. Thank you so much. I'm overwhelmed, as I've kind of mentioned before, with the support that you guys have shown me, not just in the number of followers, but just in the comments, the likes, the messages on Twitter. I am incredibly lucky to get to talk about Packers and have anyone listen to me. And for the longest time, as a couple of my friends will tell you, a long time ago, as I was writing in my own blog for SconnieSports.com, which about 3 people, those 3 friends basically that I was just mentioning, went to, and not many other people. To go from that to legitimately having people care about what I say about the Packers is still mind-numbing to me. So thank you so much for your support. Thank you for those who follow along with me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Thank you for those of you who have subscribed and for checking out this daily podcast. Thank you for those of you who have supported the Pack-A-Day podcast by subscribing wherever you get podcasts. All of it. All of it means so incredibly much to me. So thank you. I know I'm not exactly setting records here with 1,000. I still got a little ways to go before I catch up to Tom Grossi with his 100,000 and his fancy plaques. But I'm coming, Tom. The Grossi posse is put on notice. But no, in all sincerity, thank you so incredibly much. I am so overwhelmed that you guys have supported me and got me to 1,000 this quickly. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Enough about that. Let's talk about my overall thoughts on the defense and my grades from Sunday. Let me start by saying this. There are a lot of games, and Tampa is kind of a decent example of this, where I'll go into it and, Tampa was a nightmare of a game. I came out of that game after the grades feeling like, okay, that wasn't quite as bad. It was not good. It certainly wasn't great. It was a bad performance, but it wasn't quite as bad as I had thought it might be when I graded that game after watching that atrocity unfold on the field live and as you're watching the game tape. It wasn't quite as bad. I'm still not saying it was good, but I felt a little bit more comfortable coming off of grading that game and kind of feeling like this wasn't a really bad Packers team. They had a couple things, a little bit unlucky, some uncharacteristic mistakes. Tampa played pretty well, but I thought for the most part they didn't look quite as brutal as maybe I would have expected them to. This week for the defense, it was kind of the opposite. I had expected a really strong performance from the defense. I thought they looked good as I was watching the game, and as I kind of rewatched the game, thought Houston kind of gained some yardage in kind of garbage time, and as the offense went 3 and out on 3 straight drives and not putting that game away, I thought it was kind of more on the offense. But as I was breaking down this tape, there were a lot of concerns is the wrong word, but it just wasn't as good as I had expected it to be. And, Green Bay played a lot of zone in this game. Mike Pettin played a lot of zone. And, because of that, the corners aren't going to quite get the normal, grades that sometimes you get if you're playing a lot of man-to-man. In zone, you're just kind of dropping back to a specific spot on the field. A lot of times you're just covering a space, which is obviously zone defense, instead of a man. And if the ball's not coming your way, the opportunity for big fluctuations in grades just isn't that great. Did you get to your spot? Great. If the ball didn't come your way, you didn't really do a whole hell of a lot other than drop to your specific spot on the field. So when you don't see maybe Jair Alexander get this huge grade this week, it's because he played a lot of zone, and the ball didn't come his way. He was basically just dropping to a spot. He did that well, but he just wasn't involved in a ton of the game. So they played a lot of zone on the back end. I thought the safeties played well. I thought the linebackers, for the most part, were fairly neutral, some good, some bad. But the edge rushers, specifically the pass rushers, I should say more specifically, in this game, there were a lot of opportunities to get to the quarterback, especially in the second half of this game. Deshaun Watson threw a ton of passes in the second half, or at least dropped back to pass on a lot of plays. He scrambled a few times, but this also was in a situation like Tom Brady where it's 3-stepping out, 3-stepping out. There were opportunities to get to Deshaun Watson, and Green Bay's front four really struggled with that, especially in the second half of the game, especially when they knew that Houston was passing. And that's really what was so disappointing is, you didn't see the big sack numbers from Kenny Clark and Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary and Kingsley Keke and those guys. You did get some sacks. Adrian Amos had a sack, Chris Barnes had a sack, and Zadarius did have one, but Zadarius's was more of kind of off of breakdown play. Amos was one-on-one on the outside, which was a nice play by Amos, but not your typical edge rusher. And Barnes was kind of a breakdown play as well. We just still have not seen the ability for Green Bay's front four to win clean against opposing offensive lines, even when they're in ideal circumstances. When you're up 21-0 in the second half and have the ability to tee off on the quarterback. Go back to Tampa a week ago. It was really difficult for the Packers offensive line to really just kind of sit back and pass protect Aaron Rodgers, because Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul and that entire group of Tampa Bay defensive linemen and Ndamukong Suh, they were teeing off. They knew Green Bay was passing the football, and they had basically the ability to not worry about the run and to, again, tee off on the quarterback. And Green Bay had that same opportunity, and they couldn't take advantage of it, especially again in the second half. I thought the start of the game and really probably about the first 3 quarters of the first half were much, much better. And in the second half, it was just very flat, very lackadaisical. I know they didn't give up a ton of points, but and it's still graded out as an overall positive performance for the defense. But there was just some concerns I overall had from, again, the pass rush. And then there were just some breakdowns in coverage too. Part of it was good scheme by Houston. They got a couple opportunities on a deep crosser, past Jair. Jair was kind of in a no-win situation on the play, and Deshaun Watson was just looking left instead of right. If he was looking right, it would have been a wide open touchdown. Another play where Randall Cobb had kind of one of his second reaction plays, comes over the middle of the field. Kamal Martin's there, and then he kind of breaks towards the back of the end zone. This is the play, if you remember, where Deshaun Watson kind of steps up, does like a full 360 in the pocket, then breaks out, and I think he either scrambled or threw a little check down. I forget which one it was, but when he looked up, he had Cobb wide open in the corner of the end zone, and for some reason did not pull the trigger. And Cobb, you could tell, was like, what the hell, after the play. So there were some plays in coverage where if Watson would have been either looking that way or just pulled the trigger, they would have given up some more touchdowns and some more points. And again, I just thought the pass rush wasn't where it needed to be again. And this has been a story all season long. So let me get to some positives, though, my 3 highest graded players from this game. And I think some of these may surprise you a little bit. Adrian Amos was my number 1 rated player, really pretty easily. He was +1 point something. He's well in the positive in this game, and thought he had a really nice game overall. Of course, he had the sack, he had a fumble recovery late in the game. I thought he was really solid in coverage all day long, was supporting the run, very sound tackling, just didn't do anything wrong in this game. You go back and watch his overall performance, and it was, I hesitate to say flawless, but just very, very few errors from Adrian Amos. And then you add that, to some big plays and in some big moments. Again, the 3rd down sack and then the fumble recovery really to seal the game. And I thought he had a really nice game overall. Will Redmond, actually my 2nd rated player in this game. I thought the safeties did a really nice job. Houston was one of the more explosive offenses coming into this game, and if you're, as a defense, going to limit some of those explosive plays, your safeties have to be on the top of their game. And I thought Will Redmond subbing in for Darnell Savage and Adrian Amos both were really the 2 deciding factors in why you didn't see more explosive plays from the Texans. I thought Will Redmond was very good in coverage. He did have the penalty on the helmet-to-helmet. I didn't penalize him too much for that. It was just kind of an aggressive tackle that went awry a little bit. Could he have maybe kept his head up? Yes, but he forced the incompletion on the play, just was kind of unlucky to get the 15-yard penalty. But overall, really liked the performance from Will Redmond as well. And then number 3, Jair Alexander, even though he was playing a lot of zone, and even though he didn't get a lot of balls thrown his way, and even though he had a couple miscues here and there, still, when you shut down receivers like that and just basically don't allow completions, you're going to grade well. And while, I think a lot of people maybe would have expected Jair to be number 1 on this list, still a top 3 performance and just another positive grade for Jair all season long. And again, I go back to, I think what I said last week is, these are the average games for Jair Alexander now, where he still grades really well and basically doesn't allow completion. So another really solid game for Jair Alexander. So Amos 1, Redmond 2, Jair 3, again, all in the secondary. My 3 lowest graded players, number 1 was Rashawn Gary. Really struggled in this game. I thought he was solid against the run, but just as a pass rusher, really struggled to generate pressure. It almost looked like he was just kind of thinking too much and just not reacting and just not playing smooth and comfortable football. For every move that he did, it was just like he got stuck in mud and like couldn't figure out how to counter or put a second move on top of it. You can tell he still has a ways to go. That natural athleticism is still there, the effort's there, but he's struggling to put together moves to try to get free from an opposing offensive tackle. Laramie Tunsil's very, very good, but overall I thought there were opportunities there for Rashawn Gary. He didn't always take advantage of it. Had some opportunities on twists and stunts, couldn't get there. So some work to do for Rashawn Gary still as he kind of refines his moveset and still tries to become an all-around pass rusher. Number 2, and this one may be very surprising because he was one of the players I had listed initially as one of the players of the game, and that was Preston Smith. This game was a little bit of fool's gold, in my opinion, for Preston Smith. Yes, he set the edge early in the game to kind of push things out to Josh Jackson to get a 3-and-out early in the game. Yes, he had that stop on 4th down, but really, they didn't block him on that play. He made a nice play. He got a good score on that play, but he was unblocked, and basically he just kind of cut it off and then just tackled Deshaun Watson. So there were a couple plays here and there. He did have a couple pressures. He helped force one of the sacks, but if you go back and watch, again, he had a ton of opportunities to rush the passer and struggled to get home, and way too many times just 3 steps and dead. And what I mean by that is, he gets into his pass rush and the offensive tackle gets his hands on him and it's just over. There's nothing more. And that's what I really struggled with from really Preston Smith all season. This was still one of his best games, and he's still graded in the negative. So disappointing from Preston Smith. I was really hoping, and again, I originally listed him as one of my highest rated players. I thought he flashed on multiple plays when I first watched it, but as I really dug into it, and this is why I enjoy doing this so much, is because those things where you initially think are easy evaluations where Preston played a great game, you go back and watch it and he really didn't. Again, just too many opportunities to rush the passer where he couldn't get home. And then number 3 was Ty Summers. Just really struggled in coverage, had the play where he tried to pass a coverage off to Josh Jackson, really should have just maintained his coverage on that play. A couple other plays like that, just lacking instincts, tackling, coverage, all of it at this point for Ty Summers. Yes, he's got great athleticism, but if you don't have the instincts and the tackling ability and the coverage ability, you're going to be a liability out there. And so far, more often than not, that's been the story for Ty Summers. So that's going to do it for me today. I know it didn't mean to be like a gloom and doom about the defense. Like I said, I was really expecting it to grade a little bit better. And again, I want to emphasize again, they still graded in the positive in this game. It wasn't by much, but it was still a positive grade overall. And the secondary deserves a lot of credit for their overall performance. But they left some plays out on the field, and my biggest struggle right now with this defense is the pass rush. They have to find a way to generate more pressure. Hopefully they can get things going on the right foot this week against Minnesota. That's going to do it for me. Make sure to check out Dusty, Steve, and Sarah on the long form version of the podcast. Make sure to check me out right here tomorrow as I continue to break down film and continue to go over just general Packers topics and start breaking down Packers Vikings this week. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.